abandoned ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Right! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and another special guest episode. We have Mike from Switch2ThePast on the Escape Pod this week with our other co-host Darian, and we are going to be chatting about KOTOR, the glory days, revisiting such a legendary game that has had lasting impact on Star Wars gaming culture and so many other things. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Another happy landing.
All right, welcome back. And first up, welcome back, Darian. Thank you for jumping on and doing the co-hosting from a little ways away.
Sakura guy, thank you for having me. Sorry to everyone if my audio is worse than even usual. I try my best.
Amazing. Well, I mean, we can hear you loud and clear, so that's good. And big special welcome to Mike from Switch2ThePast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Josh. Always excited to be on here to talk about Star Wars. I'm always down for some Star Wars talk.
Just so that our listeners, our audience knows where you're coming from, and maybe also tell them a little bit about Switch2ThePast.
Well, so Switch2ThePast is a podcast I co-host with my friend Neil. I've been doing it for a while now. Done a couple different variations. We started with the GameCube Was Cool podcast, which is where we looked at all 555 GameCube games on in North America on the console. And now we've kind of moved over to more general Nintendo talk, but sometimes we talk about things like Star Wars, which you were on for, Josh, when we did the Revenge of the Sith game for, I think, Game Boy Advance is what we talked about it, maybe a little bit DS as well, for the 20th anniversary of that.
Yes.
And welcome to our neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, welcome to our neck of the woods. So where Star Wars is just on the menu every week. Yeah, so I guess when because we're kicking things off with a game called Knights of the Old Republic, which launched in 2003 on July 15th. And this game has had a pretty lasting impact over the Star Wars gaming community. In fact, it's had such a lasting impact that its legacy continues on today in the form of a MMO called The Old Republic. So it's kind of a sequel in some respects, a long-awaited sequel, I guess, by BioWare, but it was a continuation of the story that left off in KOTOR 2, and it kind of evolved, I guess, as MMOs do. But a lot of every few years, they'll drop another story package and they bring characters back. And most recently, they did some crazy Revan plotline, which I have no idea how or what the premise is behind bringing that character back, and if he's actually even back or not. But it's completely not canon, and I think a lot of people just have fun playing in the Star Wars galaxy as a character and discovering the story there. So Knights of the Old Republic really introduced a lot of people to the concept of a role-playing game in that respect. And I guess, what was your experience like when you played this game for the first time? And what platform were you on, and what year was it? And what's the story there with KOTOR for you? Sure,
yeah. So for me, the first time I actually played this game would have been very shortly after it launched in 2003. My cousin, who's a bit older than me, he loved Star Wars, and his dad, my uncle, was a huge Star Wars fan from back in the day. And it's one of the reasons I got into the franchise. And my cousin had KOTOR. It had just come out, and he had it on his PC. I was over there for Christmas, and I was watching him play it, and I played a little bit of it as well, but you know, I was so daunting to me. I was like, whoa, this is like such an adult game, right? Like I'm like maybe 9 or so at this point, and I'm just used to like playing, like, I don't know, my Mario Karts and my Revenge of the Sith DS, or I guess not Revenge of the Sith, my Attack of the Clones on my Game Boy Advance at this point. So it was such a different kind of game. I had never really played this kind of role-playing game before. So I only maybe got in a couple chapters in. I didn't play for that long until my cousin was just, I'll take it back. I'm going to do it. So I watched him play it and played a lot of it. And that was my first kind of introduction to it. And it wasn't until years later, actually, during the pandemic, that a friend of mine wanted to get into it. And it had just come out on Switch. And I thought, you know what, like this actually would be cool to play on Switch. I've always wanted to go back to this game and play it. So I finally got to do that. During the pandemic, playing it on the Nintendo Switch, and I loved it. Like I was so excited to play this and get back into this universe again. There were like little things that I did remember from watching my cousin play it and me playing it myself too. So it was a really cool experience to play on the Switch. We're gonna get into this, I'm sure, but I feel like the PC is probably still the better way to play this game. But the Switch was still a really good experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great to see these games being kept alive in this franchise, I guess, you know, because one of the issues I have a lot with just media these days is that everything's been digitized and nothing's on analog anymore. So it's very easy for something to no longer be compatible with a new piece of hardware, or it just gets lost forever. And there's, you know, and this happens with movies now too, with streaming services, and things go the way of the dodo when they write it off as a tax, you know, thing, and they take it off the service, and then no one can watch it anywhere. It's like, it's good. So it's good to see such an influential game like this, like, come to pretty much every platform known to man. Like this game has been re-released on Windows, Xbox, Mac, iOS, Android, Linux, and Switch. Like there's almost no platform that you can like not play this game on, which is pretty amazing. So, you know, if you have the phone in your pocket, you can play this game. It's pretty amazing. So yeah. Darian, what was your exposure to this game when back when it?
So this was like, I was just out of high school when this game came out, and it was the first real role-playing game you could play on a gaming system, because like everything before this was, they called them role-playing games. You made decisions that affected the story, but you couldn't customize your character really. So this is the first game where you could take D&D stats and port them right into the game and customize your character to play the way you wanted. So I was insanely addicted to this, and I probably played it 6 playthroughs through the first year it was out. So I played it on the Xbox because, you know, that was the only decent gaming system at the time. But
hey, what about the GameCube? Come on.
You guys did have the Rogue Squadron that didn't get released anything else. I was always jealous of that.
That's right.
But, yeah. This honestly, this game was brand new, my impression was it was a response to the backlash of the Rule of Two that was introduced in Phantom Menace, where Star Wars fans were expecting there to be thousands of Sith like there were thousands of Jedi. And we wanted to see that war between a ton of Sith and a ton of Jedi. This seemed like, hey, you might not like the way the movies are going, but we're still going to make you happy as fans.
Right. Yeah.
That's a good point. I never thought of that, actually, but that's probably definitely what happened in terms of like in the writing room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I love that because this is exactly what I wanted to see. I didn't want to be the only Jedi or the only Sith. I wanted to explore a world where the opportunities were endless, and this, I still feel like this is probably the closest we ever got.
There was a bit of a multimedia project around this too. Like Dark Horse had published some comic book series that took place before KOTOR launched, and just curious, like did you guys end up reading those by any chance, like at any point in time, or were those kind of I guess a mystery to you?
For me, it was kind of a mystery. I never got into them, but I knew people who were reading them, and I knew some of the lore. And kind of like I should actually mention, I did know a spoiler already of like, I mean, I don't know if we're spoiling stuff on this show. but
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
with Darth Revan
Yeah,
and like it being you, right?
Yeah.
Like that, I knew that already before I played it, like in 2020. So I knew a lot about like the backstory of Knights of the Old Republic. I knew some like the lore, so to speak, that Lucas Arts had really been kind of pushing with this multimedia project, like you said. And it was always something that was like super, and still is super interesting to me. I would like to read those comics at some point, because I think it's like when you set something 4,000 years before like the prequels, you kind of leave yourself open to able to do anything you want, and that's something that's always fun.
Right. Yeah. And, it's, I think as time's gone by as well, there's been novels that have come out with the Old Republic label on it and, do have kind of those ties to the Knights of the Old Republic series. But, what about you, Darian? Did you end up doing any reading of any Old Republic stuff?
No, I didn't find out about any of that until years later, and I didn't really feel gravitated to go and get it, because at the time, Marvel Comics had not been doing a good job in the Star Wars universe. So to go out when you live in a small town and try and find a comic store that might carry a Star Wars title was a lot of effort. And I had already beaten the game, so I knew the mystery that got revealed that I didn't see coming. So the appeal of the comics just didn't grab me at the time. So yeah.
So something about this game that I guess if anyone hasn't played it was kind of wondering about the alignment system that you were talking about, Darian, like making choices that affect the game. This was something that was pretty new to, I think, most games, is that, choosing certain things would have an impact on the story, on the character, and on your alignment. And you would have a little tracker that kind of let you know as a player, I guess, if you were aligned with the light side or the dark side. And I think it was maybe, tell me if I'm wrong, but possibly the first time in a Star Wars story that we were introduced to this idea of like gray Jedi. How did you like that, Mike? Like when you played that for the first time, like what did you think of the alignment system?
Well, as a kid playing that, like that is the coolest thing on earth, right? It's like that's all a kid ever, and an adult honestly, but that's all a kid would ever want to do, right? Is just like, it's fun to be the bad guy. It's fun to be able to choose to do these kind of actions that will make you more Sith or more dark side, more light side. It was just such a natural thing that I was kind of surprised that this wasn't showcased in any Star Wars game before this, considering the amount of Star Wars games that were out at this point. I loved it, and I loved it playing it in modern day as well. Like and it's also makes it more replayable, right? Like I've played it now 2 or 3 times where I've gone full dark side, full light side, and then often kind of just like trying like a almost gray Jedi type character. And I always prefer going full dark side. That's just I play Fallout the same way. Like I'm that guy for sure. But it's fun to see kind of what changes. And for a 2003 game, like there's a ridiculous amount of stuff that can change based on your choices. And it was funny because I was playing this, and maybe very soon after I was playing Hogwarts Legacy, a completely different franchise, I know, but a modern game. And in Hogwarts Legacy, they're constantly giving you these dialogue trees that end up really just being nothing. Like nothing happens out of it. And the cutscenes don't change. Your character doesn't really change. And then I'm playing this 2003 game at the same time where like you can have complete control and command over how you want your story to progress. And I thought that was just so cool to have that comparison and see that this game holds up so well still.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, I was just, so I don't know, this is a crazy coincidence, but I was just, because I loved Hogwarts Legacy, but that was the one thing, one of the few things actually that I thought, man, this really could have been different. Like I would have loved for there to be some sort of consequence for, the moment in the game when you finally unlock Avada Kedavra. You're just going around one-shotting massive trolls and then just taking off in the broom. And you're supposed to be this like 15-year-old kid going to school. And it's like, there's got to be some kind of like psychological impact here. Like, you know what I mean? And I thought to myself, like, man, like this is crazy. And then the other day I read an article about Hogwarts Legacy 2 and how this is a potentially rumored game that they're probably working on, most likely, because, the game made a lot of money. And that was something that a lot of people are hoping for, is that with the second game that they do have some sort of alignment system, kind of like KOTOR is that whatever you end up choosing to do with your combat abilities and certain spells and certain dialogue choices, I guess, would affect your reputation or your for being a good or a dark wizard. And then, of course, a lot of people have been really missing the house point system. Completely different thing, but like, if you're like in Ravenclaw, you kind of, you're rooting for your house, right? But if you do some sort of dark stuff, then at least the teachers can, like, if they get wind of it, maybe they take away some points or something like that. So I like that there's some consequence there. And Blake and I just played, most recently we had a chat about a studio called Quantic Dream, and we just played through Detroit and a game called Beyond Two Souls. And the entire narrative of the game is constructed around the player with the freedom to choose what you want to do and what you want to say. And it actually is built to do that. It's built around the possibility of you saying this, so then it does this, and the story goes there. And there is 40 different ways that this game can end. And that blew me away. Like, it was the first time that I'd experienced anything so sort of narratively realistic, but also responsive to someone's choices. And very much more advanced than the KOTOR thing. But we're talking about a game that came out in 2003. So it's incredibly impressive that they managed to do this. Yeah.
And it's BioWare, right? And like the BioWare really showing their chops here. And of course, BioWare making Mass Effect series immediately after this, which is really, Mass Effect is the spiritual successor to KOTOR, because KOTOR 2 is not BioWare. I forget who made it, but BioWare didn't have any really anything to do with it at that point. The team was already creating Mass Effect, because I'm not sure if you're going to talk about this, Josh, but I know that BioWare presented Mass Effect to LucasArts and was like, hey, Star Wars? And they're like, no. And they're like, okay, we're going to do our own thing. And that's just like always such a huge miss. Like, imagine if Mass Effect was Star Wars themed.
Oh man,
it'd be incredible.
That's crazy.
Right?
Yeah, because Mass Effect is such a huge like gaming title still. Like, that's amazing. I didn't know that was supposed to be a Star Wars thing. That's crazy.
Yeah. They assumed that they were gonna, like, a lot of these, smaller devs, they assumed that the bigger company, the publisher, is gonna keep them on. And I mean, Nintendo did this with Rare, as we know too. Like, these publishers kind of lose sight of that. They see they put something out that's profitable, but then they want to just do the same thing over and over again. And obviously, good developers don't want to do that. They want to make original ideas. And in the end, we got Mass Effect, so that's great, because that's a great series. But yeah, it just is like another like what if.
Yeah, 100%. Darian, what would you say about this game having an impact on Star Wars culture, like in the way of, or just even in cultural in general? Like, have you noticed like a pattern with games going forward after this game came out? Do you notice anything within Star Wars itself that kind of shifted after this game? Anything like that?
Oh, definitely. I would say that all Star Wars games added role-playing elements to them after this, except for maybe the most like hardcore shooters. But even if you look in Battlefield and stuff, there is character development in there that I don't think we would have seen without KOTOR. But what I'd say it affected more than anything was all of a sudden the books were no longer just talking about the main three characters from the original Star Wars trilogy or the Clone Wars. Now all of a sudden you're starting to see all these different time periods, and that's where they go back and talk about the introduction of the Jedi, and cosplayers all of a sudden are now coming up with their own new Star Wars characters for like the Sith and the Jedi and whatnot, and not just following the movies. Like, I feel like this made Star Wars fans realize that they could make Star Wars their own thing, that they could represent themselves how they wanted, rather than just trying to play Luke, Leia, Han, and Darth Maul.
Right. Yeah. Like there's some investment there in, I guess, your own journey, like your own story. And I guess in some ways, like when I play a game like Jedi Fallen Order or something like that, like I'm very invested in the character that I'm playing. I don't know. Like, I mean, I didn't play a whole lot of games like KOTOR or like first-person action-adventure games like Jedi way back then, because I was glued to my Game Boy, but which is a bit of a different experience. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think this game probably did have some big cultural impact there, and amongst the dev community, I'm sure this game really sort of rocked the boat, so to speak, and left an impact elsewhere.
It's interesting too, because this game, like, it's. A lot of people kind of now will characterize it as having a lot of archaic game design elements in it, which is kind of like, it is correct, but I feel like that's something that there's so much like story and heart and things in this game that you can look past those elements. I feel like from a dev perspective, if you're thinking that, because like developers when this came out, I assume we're probably like, wow, like this is really good, but like it's interesting that you're using this kind of like full turn-based attack mode in an action RPG. Like that's in 2003. That is a bit of an old thing to be doing even then.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people seemed upset by that when it was new. Like, hey, we got rid of this a while ago because we found players weren't engaging, and now you brought it back and like doubled down on it, if anything.
Yeah.
So
and I really think for that, it was just the ease of development, right? Like BioWare, small studio, they had created this massive world and probably worked so hard to create this game and its environments and everything, the characters, the decision trees. Like there's so much that they had to do. And then they're like, okay, but what do we actually do for gameplay? Because like we cannot like create a full just action adventure game. Like we need to make it like this turn-based style. And I think that's the only thing that will stop some people from wanting to play it and get into it more in present day, which is why I would love to see this game remade. I know they're supposed to remake it. No idea what's happening there, but
yeah, what's your thoughts on that? Yeah, Darian, we start with you. What are your thoughts on the remake?
I want to see it so bad, especially because like I recently started playing KOTOR again just to familiarize myself with the story. Because you never know. I was like 20 at the time, and well, probably not even that old. And my interpretation is probably entirely different now. I remember the good and bad system, the dark and light, was a little chunky in the first one, and the second one they got a little bit better. But I want to see them just give us better graphics, make the games play smoother so all the glitches aren't there. That, you know, we're very forgiving of now. Nobody sits and complains about the glitches of that game, but they're pretty much constant. Like, especially when you're getting in and out of battles, things disappear and reappear. So I don't see that being a failure in any way. I don't know why it's taking so many different studios to try their hand at it to get it to work. It seems like a pretty easy port, especially with Halo 1 and 2 being ported over to a newer system where they're running two systems at once. It's not a game that requires a lot of hardware to run, so just give us an overlay of better graphics and do some voice acting and whatnot. But I'm not really a tech guy, so that comes from a complete place of ignorance.
There was this same year that KOTOR came out, there was actually a lot of stuff that did happen in Star Wars. I think it was the Gandhi Tartakovsky Clone Wars series had started to launch. So that introduced a lot of fans to Asajj Ventress, which was a bit of a game changer, kind of like what you were saying, Darian, how there was this rule of two and some people were maybe a little jaded that they didn't get to see more dark side people. And that same year, you know, not only did we have KOTOR with this concept of thousands of Sith, kind of 1,000 years before the movies, but we also had this idea that in the modern day story that we're watching, there is still sort of this backstabbing idea that, you know, one apprentice could betray the master if they took on their own assassin, so to speak, and trained them up well enough to become their apprentice. So that was a big thing that year. And there was another thing that came out that year, which was Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy. That came out in September of 2003. And this was, I don't want to call it a similar game, but this was, you know, still very much I guess an action RPG story-driven narrative that also came out on a few platforms. And the same year, I think it was the MMO at the time called Star Wars Galaxies. In the first week, 125,000 customers sign up to live out the virtual life in the Star Wars universe. So, you know, that was also another thing that came out that year. So it was a big year for Star Wars gaming surrounding this event of KOTOR. So I guess, like, did you guys have any, I don't know, do you think you can draw any lines towards those things? Or, like, did you play any of those other things that came out that year? Or was KOTOR kind of like the staple thing? I've
only played Jedi Academy or Jedi Outcast for the GameCube when we were doing the podcast, because we, of course, had to play every Star Wars game that came out on the Nintendo GameCube, and that was one of them. And they're good games. There's two in the series, but it's actually also the worst naming convention of all time for them, because it's like, what is it, like Jedi Knight 2, like Jedi Outcast? It's very confusing. those games were very. They're good, but they lack the same kind of heart and attention to detail and characterization that KOTOR had. Like, I think for KOTOR, you play the game for the story and for the characterizations and for like the decisions you could make. Like, it's one of the few games I've ever had where I genuinely will feel bad if I mess something up. You know, if I don't go down like a certain path that I'm going for, I'm like, oh no, like I feel like I didn't want to do that. Where in the other games, like they're good games. They're solid games. They definitely just don't hold up to the same level of quality that Knights of the Old Republic does.
Yeah. How about you, Darian? Did you experiment with any of these others the same year, or was KOTOR just the dominant game on your list that year?
Well, I moved to Kelowna just before the multiplayer online one came out. So Kelowna didn't have high-speed internet that was reliable at the time. You'd start playing and then all of a sudden your internet crashed for 2 hours, or you'd lag so bad that you'd all of a sudden just die because some rancor ran up to you and killed you, but you didn't know you were in a battle, so you just kept walking down the beach. So
like I
never really got into that
10
one.
Second latency there,
and it seemed like it was a really great game.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that made that game impossible to play. And then there was such a backlash for Kyle Katarn being a Jedi Master in Jedi Knights that my friends hated on it so much. I just figured it would be a terrible game. So I didn't play that. Yeah, I didn't play that until way later. Because like the only exposure I had to Kyle Katarn was Mysteries of the Sith and what was the first one? Anyways, where he was like this action hero kind of guy like Han Solo. So all of a sudden he's this Jedi Master and it's like, what?
Yeah, I forgot about that. That is a whole thing with that franchise. I just never got into that franchise as much, unfortunately. I wish sometimes I wish I did, but at the same time, like you said, Darian, like I feel like people don't usually speak that highly of it. Like I never hear people being like, oh, like Outcast is my favorite Star Wars game ever. Like I've never heard that sentence in my life.
Me neither.
Yeah, I honestly don't know anyone that's out there for that game on any level.
Yeah, they're not bad games. That's the thing. They're just like I think that's what you're getting to. Just like it's just the nostalgia just isn't there. Like you played it, you're like, okay.
Yeah, I think it seems like they were just trying to bank on a character that people are familiar with as a touchstone, and it was like, yeah, you don't understand your fans enough. So
I guess
that hasn't changed.
So I guess just to put that in
no,
that hasn't changed yet. I guess just to put it in perspective, I guess these are reasons why KOTOR was such a standout. I guess, right? And it was only the following year in December that the sequel, Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords, came out as well. And this was the same year that Revenge of the Sith was announced at Comic-Con with the full title card. This was the same year that the first Republic Commando book by Karen Travis called Hard Contact was released, which then the game would follow the following year for that series. It was also the first expansion pack for the Star Wars Galaxies MMO Online, which was adding starship travel and combat to the game. So, and Battlefront, of course, a title which also still continues to carry a very memorable license for a lot of people these days. But did you guys play? I guess we'll start with you, Mike. Like, did you play KOTOR 2? And what did you think of the Sith Lords? Because I guess this was the year that the Sith were really coming back as far as like a popular thing. You know, the sequel was named The Sith Lords. We also had a movie coming out the following year called Revenge of the Sith. You know, lots of emphasis around sort of the dark side and this and that. So what did you think of that story?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't really play KOTOR 2. I only played like maybe the first couple chapters, and it wasn't anything of like I didn't like it. It was more just I played it right after KOTOR, and I had already spent so much time in that. And I started playing KOTOR 2, and then I was like, I don't know, I need a break from this. And then the break just went on forever. And then I went back to just playing KOTOR 1. So I unfortunately never finished KOTOR 2, but I know some of the story, and I know very Sith heavy. And that's actually a really good point you're making there. I didn't even like tie the 2 and 2 together that, like this was kind of Star Wars pushing the Sith, I guess, and pushing the fact that we're going to have the Empire's back in a lot of people's eyes for that. It's interesting. I didn't think of that.
Definitely, yeah. What about you, Darian? Did you play KOTOR 2?
I remember KOTOR 2 is probably the most hyped thing I've ever seen in Star Wars. And they didn't spend a lot of money on the advertising. It's just fans were so ravenous that, hey, because my one gripe about first game is you can't truly be dark side in that game. Like, you can make dark side decisions, but you are very, very punished for it. Most of your cohort do not like you being dark side. Whereas KOTOR 2, I feel it was perfectly balanced. You can be dark side, but you got to choose these people to go with you. You can be good side, but you have to choose these other people to go with you. That was the game where they listened to their fans by far the most. Like, everything that was wrong with the first game that they could with the limitations of the technology, but they didn't give it enough development time. They were just so hot to get it out that they didn't give the writers legs to make it as impactful as a story. It's still a great story, don't get me wrong. But the first one, 2/3 of the game through, you find out something that shocked you in the storyline. You know, you think you're investigating this other person and whatnot, and then it's like the guy who made Signs. He did those movies where there was such a weird plot twist. Yeah, it was like that level of plot twist in the game, and nobody saw it coming.
Yeah.
Just to what you said as well about how they kind of rushed this game. I mean, first off, like, I couldn't believe that this game came out like barely a year and a half after the first one came out, and also it did launch with, I guess, some issues, but some bugs, and I've also heard, I think a lot of people who know about this game have probably also heard that the game came out in a bit of an incomplete state. Like, there were some storylines, I guess, that were chopped, or some content that was missing, I guess, from the final product, which they tried to polish around, but was, I guess, left a bit of a hole somewhere. I never got that far in that game to actually recognize what that was, but I do know that a notable fan mod called the Sith Lord's Restored Content Modification servers it's an unofficial patch, but they fixed around 500 remaining bugs, and along with restoring most of the content that was cut from the game. So I don't know how on earth they did that, but there were, other ways of improving the game a little bit kind of years later. But that was just kind of something I want to throw out there for that game. But still, I mean, it still remains to be a fairly highly respected game. It sold a lot of copies, and got good reviews and stuff like that. So.
Go ahead, Darian. But I'd actually say that some of the characters in KOTOR 2 are more iconic than KOTOR 1 and possibly almost any other game, because, like, Darth Nihilus is something I see every second convention I go to. Somebody's cosplaying Darth Nihilus. Yeah. When you watch lightsaber battles on YouTube, somebody's always got the Nihilus mask painted on their fencing helmet. So, like, that's a character that, and like when we did our fantasy draft, I had to mention specifically, like, Nihilus is not a usable character. He can wipe out planets, which make the game not fun.
Right. That was for our 400 anniversary game show episode that we did recently, and
very cool.
Yeah, we did a bit of a kind of a fantasy football type game, but you have to construct a team made up of certain categories of characters that need to break into Palpatine's vault, and you have to argue why they would be a successful team. But that was one of the rules that Darian set out was you can't play as any planet universe breaking characters.
Fair.
Yeah. But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Nihilus was a crazy character. I mean, I've played the Star Wars miniatures game for a long time, but the one by Wizards of the Coast. And his character was like, it was like $100 to like buy him separately online. He was like super rare and crazy, like just game breaking powers. Like it was it's like borderline hack. But I think like the caveat to that was that he was so expensive to play that you could barely have like an actual army around him. Like it's like okay, yeah, you're playing as Nihilus. Like okay, you maybe get like a handful of other guys, but like not very many. I guess I haven't really played a whole lot of this one, but just a backstory for me, because I totally didn't go over it, was both of these games I actually played later after they'd come out. Wasn't really a PC game or any, like I was very much glued to the Game Boy, back in 2003 and 2004, but the games eventually came into my onto my radar, I guess, when I was visiting some family in Europe, and I was in this little toy store in a local mall, and this must have been 2008 or 2009, something like that. Possibly 2007, and it was so it was a while after they came out, I guess, at the time, but they were in the $5 like game bin type thing, but well, €5, I guess. And it was just a stack that I brought home. I brought home Republic Commando, KOTOR, KOTOR 2, and I think that was it. I think it was just like the three, but I played all of them, and out of the three, I was enamored most by Republic Commando. But KOTOR was still pretty awesome. And then I had some issues playing KOTOR 2, but that was just old computer stuff. But yeah, it was a solid game. So that's my story. That's my exposure to eventually kind of how I came to play the games. But yeah, the cultural impact of KOTOR 2 is pretty nuts. Yeah, I don't know, like Darian, what would you say about I guess some of the other characters, like Nihilus is a big one, but there was another one that was, I guess, pretty big from that game too, right? Was it Scion or something? Darth Scion?
I'm just googling it because I don't remember his name, but there's actually two other Sith characters that all three of them were vying to be the master of the dark side. And I'm just pulling up characters now. Kreia.
Yeah, Kreia and Scion. Yeah.
And yeah, that was the first time where you really got to explore what the dark side did to their bodies. Because there's all these stories previous to that of like Vader rotting because the dark side is destroying his body, that the Emperor is rotting. But it seemed the same. Whereas, like, Kreia went blind because of the Force attacks and stuff. The guy that could not die, his body was, like, crystallizing and, like, shattering and then coming together just by pure hatred and anger.
Yeah.
So, like, it wasn't just that they rotted. It was that their use of the dark side of the Force did very specific things to them based on what they were doing with their powers. So, the big guy, he had an insatiable hunger. The more power he got, the hungrier he got. The hungrier he got, the more he killed. The more he killed, the more powerful. And it was this like never-ending cycle of he was his own worst enemy. It wasn't just that he was rotting. He became a void entirely. Like his entire body basically becomes a void in a metaphorical sort of way because he just needs to sustain himself by wiping out life.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just this cut and dry thing that you see in the movies.
Yeah, big impact on the lore there with, things like powers that the dark side has to offer, I guess, that can only be found there. So, yeah, I guess to kind of... Say again?
It was probably the first time that you also see that, dark side users use less energy and are easier to use dark side powers than the Jedi. The Jedi could use certain dark side abilities, but it would entirely drain them. Whereas the dark side couldn't really heal themselves and stuff like the Jedi could because that was a good side force power. So I feel like that game enhanced Force abilities and the lore behind them more than anything else.
Yeah, for sure. I guess to start to wrap things up here, Mike, what would you say to players who are looking to, perhaps they're looking for a new Star Wars game to play before the next big one comes out, because it's I guess we got Zero Company on the roster. I don't know, I guess, what all the platforms are that'll be available on, but Outlaws was the most recently available, and I think that just dropped on Switch, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, it's on Switch. Yep. Switch 2.
Yeah. What would you say to Star Wars fans that like they're gaming on Switch and they're looking for a new Star Wars game? They never played KOTOR. How would you recommend the game to them?
I mean, first of all, it's almost always on sale on Switch. It's usually pretty cheap, $15 or so, I think is what I got it for, which is honestly a great investment. I think, go into the game with an open mind about combat, about what you're going to have to kind of go through in terms of those quote unquote archaic game design elements that we were talking about earlier. But Asper, who is the developer on this, who ported the game over to Switch, they did a fantastic job with the limitations of the hardware. Like, I think they did a really good job of bringing this to Switch. The game plays really nicely especially when you're playing handheld. Like, it was really cool being able to play Knights of the Old Republic on a handheld device. Like 10-year-old me would be absolutely enamored by seeing that. Like that was just so cool to me that I was like playing it on the train the other day. I was like, oh, I'm playing KOTOR in the wild. This is so cool. Like it was, I think that's like something that the Switch is like magical for, honestly. I mean, and you can do the Steam Deck too now, which is great. But I think if you're a Star Wars fan and you like story, you like characters, and you haven't played this game, you need to play this game. This is arguably and honestly, objectively, the best Star Wars game for characterization. Like it's, and KOTOR 2 as well. I know like they're both really good for that. And like the story is great. The twists are great. The light dark meter is fun. And you truly get invested in everything. And I wanted to bring up my favorite side quest, as I know, a little aside here, but it kind of works with my selling point here. My favorite side quest, I don't know if you guys remember, it's I had to look it up, the name of it. It's a Sandral Matali feud. It's like the Romeo and Juliet quest. You know what I'm talking about on Dantooine?
Oh man, I don't think I got to that. Did you, Darian?
I vaguely remembered. I think I killed them my first couple playthroughs.
Yeah. So this is the one where it's like you're on Dantooine and you come to this house and you meet the daughter. And then you meet the son, and like they're from two rival families, and they want to get together. And there's so many options for dialogue that you can choose, and it's quite hard for you to like make it all work out. And I remember the first time I ever did it, I basically got everyone to just shoot themselves and kill themselves, and that was it. I'm just like, what have I done? And that made me like, that was kind of like the tipping point for me where I was like, okay, I like this game a lot. This is a really good game. Like that they animated like the worst scenario. And then like I found out there's like 10 different scenarios for this one side quest. I thought that was so cool. And it's not just that side quest, it's like every quest that you do, that there's so much detail and care put into this, and the amount of fun that you can have with just something like that really kind of shows you that there's a lot of great gameplay in here. It's also not like a super long game. I think I beat it in 20-25 hours, like fully, after like going through everything. So it's a good game that's not going to eat up all of your time, and you'll have a lot of fun with it.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Darian, how would you sell this game to a Star Wars fan?
I don't know necessarily my sales pitch is perfect, but they're two games that can give Star Wars fans two very different satiations for the Star Wars universe. The first one has such depth in character development and plot, and you can do what you want with your character and discover how you affect the universe in such an interesting way. It is such a deep game, but it requires patience because there's an incredible amount of reading in that game. It's way before they could just do voice lines for everything.
Yes.
The only downside to that game is you can't truly be dark side. So if you want to be dark side, you want to get out your evil Star Wars power fantasy, play KOTOR 2, because that game doesn't have nearly the character depth, but you can play that exactly how you want. You can customize your companions to be as helpful to whatever your goals are that you want them to be, and you can truly do it. So that game gets that in spades. It's less reading. There's still quite a bit of reading in that game, but I didn't find that it was taking me out as much. So that's my honest opinion of if you should play those games or not.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And Mike, where can people listen to Switch to the Past, and how can people follow you on I don't know, X or Blue Sky or whatever you're on these days? Sure.
I did want to say also, sorry, before I give my pitch to my own channel and myself, one more pitch for my sales pitch to add is, if you're tired of all the fan service, basically, and a lot of these Star Wars shows and things where it's like, look, it's Yoda, you know, or like, look, it's, I think KOTOR does a great job of giving you a completely new universe where you're not constantly hit with like, hey, remember that guy from that movie? So
yeah, right.
That's my other.
But
that's my.
But it's also, well, it's a new universe and they're all new characters. Everything is familiar, and almost everything feels like the used Star Wars universe we're used to.
Right.
Exactly. Love it. See, together we created a great sales pitch. There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
Amazing way to end it.
But yes, Switch to the Past. That's me. I'm Mike. Half of the show, the other half is Neil, who also loves Star Wars, but he hasn't played KOTOR, and I keep telling him he should play KOTOR, but that's okay.
He just needs to listen to this, and then he'll be sold.
Exactly. He'll be sold now. Now he'll be sold. He'll play it, and we can do it on our own show at some point. That'd be really cool. But yes, Switch to the Past. Mostly where we post for the socials is on Instagram. We are at Switch2ThePast. That's the number 2, and we post over there. Quite often, show what we're doing, what episodes we're doing. We usually do 3 episodes a month or so, just depending on how life is going. Right now, or we had just put out the Yakuza episode because all the Yakuza games just came out for Switch. Which is very exciting. And we're going to be doing a couple more episodes this month and next month, I should say. Kirby Air Riders is coming out for the Switch. And so we're going to do the Kirby Air Ride, the original game. We're going to do that episode for GameCube and talk about that a lot. But yeah, Thursdays, usually every week or every other week. That's when we put content out. And then check us out on Instagram at Switch2ThePast.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mike. And thank you, Darian, for joining. And also, Darian, you just started up a YouTube channel yourself, right?
Yep. I am the man Darian on YouTube. If you are ever curious as to how to spell that, type in the Mandalorian and remove the L and the O.
Awesome. Perfect.
Clever. Hey, that's actually another thing. Mandalorian stuff in this. Is this the first time that Mandalorians were shown in a Star Wars game?
This is the first time you could at least play them. I think you could. Shadow of the Empire had Boba Fett and whatnot, but this is where you actually get to experience the Mandalorian culture. And I believe it's the first reference to the Mandalorian War, where they try to take over the galaxy.
Yes, yeah. Oh, it was cool playing it like now, and I was like, wait a minute, Mandalorians.
Yeah,
this is so old.
It's become an even bigger thing now.
yeah. It's just kind of almost a throwaway. I think they're on Dantooine. There's a mission with them that you have to do, and it's like relatively prominent in the game. So that kind of I just remember it now. So
in KOTOR 2, you get Mandalore the Great with you. He travels with you. He's the head of the Mandalorians and he's part of your party.
Oh, that's cool.
Really cool that Pedro Pascal was able to lend his voice so early on there. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you in another episode.
Thank you for having us. This is the way.
Good. This is the way. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. And thank you to our audience for joining in this week. Don't forget to follow Mike, Switch to the Past, and Darian as well. Links are all in the description. May the Force be with you, and we will see you in the next episode of Star Wars Escape Pod.